Peace family. So I'm back with another one. Today what I wanted to do is I wanted to talk to my chosen ones about how you will have to create closure for yourself. You will always have to close those doors and create those spaces as into where you don't have to ruminate about going backwards, and they don't have the option or the access as easy to dive back into your life. And just dealing with life just kind of dove me into this subject today, and then just kind of processing all the people that come and go out of my life, you know what I mean? And I'm pretty sure a lot of us have a lot of people that come and go out of our life. One, because that's how the world works, and two, because it's extremely demonic and a lot of people are not concerned with the substance or value within. We tend to open doors, fight for relationships over, we tend to go overboard with how much access we allow people to have to us. We tend to go overboard with how much energy we're actually given, and it's not a mutual exchange of energies. A lot of us, because of our upbringings, we tended to have to work on our relationship stature, meaning that you had to figure out a way to open and close doors at the same time with spousals, friends, peers, as we get older, co-workers, you know what I mean, family members, all of these different spaces and realms. And when we out here dealing and mixing with a lot of these witches and demons and things out here, they tend to do as much harm as they possibly can do. They like to live in the gray areas, so they tend to do things that'll have you ruminating, thinking about them, you know, in ways that you normally wouldn't. They figured out a way to kind of embed themselves in there really fast. I had to go through this process with creating closure for myself. When I say my first one, everybody know my main example I like to give is my BM. I done had all kind of engagements, but the huge impact was between her and the previous one I was engaged with before. But my BM, I had way more of like an in-depth, caring manner over in that one, you know. Not anymore. I'm way far from over there. But when we got to our separation point, and I just say we because I don't mind how anybody sees the separation or breakup. It doesn't bother me, just long as I'm processing it and managing my energy best way from within and within, you know. And when I had to start creating the space for the distance, because we was living together, outside of me having to go cold, turn my empathy way down, turn my involvements and communications way down with her, once we actually separated outside of the living spaces, I found myself having to process in here, letting everything go. And for me, that was a difficult time in my life. That was probably like 4, 5, maybe 6 years ago. So I'm well over that hump, you know what I mean? So when I get through certain spaces, it's easier for me to dive back and reflect. It may have been hard as fuck when I was going through it, but I made it through it. So now we get more comfortable with being able to express the things that we went through and experienced outwardly without it being such an emotional connection while you're addressing it or using it as an example. But I realized for me, when we separated, that it didn't matter if we had the courts and all these things being involved for, you know, the custody thing with my daughter. Even though I was cool with the 50-50, you know what I mean? It's just always extra stuff over on the other side of the spectrum. But I realized when I was thinking back, like, to that day and time when all of that was happening, I was full-time on the plantation where I was at in the kitchen. I was basically running the whole kitchen in the back, helping out with the front of the house. I was helping out with the bar. And I actually started helping out downstairs with the bar on the weekends more after our separation. And I only went down to the bars to start helping down there because it's all connected to the restaurant I was at. I was head chef manager over there for like 4 years. And I remember one day I had to write a whole email, right? I wrote a whole email. It was a really long email. And it's one of them ones where you open up, if you got a text message, you open it, you be like, I ain't about to bother with that. That's too long. But I had found myself in the space of writing that. And I had got to that point because I was listening to some other information while I was in this really hard space. And at this time, when we first had separated, I wasn't getting my daughter at all. So that was like kind of the hardest times right there. Even though we didn't have paperwork in place, I still could have went and took her because basically we had the same rights. But me being a brown male in society, I just know that, look, you play your cards appropriately, all right? So I just thugged it through that process or whatever. I had to start learning these little tactics as far as how to not, get so, when I had to communicate with her. Then I also had to figure out how to let that whole ideology go. Because in my world, they always take what you do and they flip it and use it against you. So my BM, she had already tricked me into, I'm grateful for my daughter. I'll never take you back or anything like that. But my BM didn't tell me that she stopped taking her birth control until like 2-3 weeks later. And basically like a couple weeks after that, she was pregnant. So it was kind of some sorcery in between there a little bit. But I wouldn't take back my mini, and I don't live in regret, you know what I mean? I'm just expressing, explaining like what was going on to the point to where it got me to the place to where I had to figure out and learn how to create closure for myself. So I had changed her name in my phone to these different acronyms that didn't have the same vibration with her name. I had wrote this long email. The email wasn't for her per se. It was more so for me because I had to figure out another formula and method as far as letting go within. I had a hard time because I was already so invested. Physically, spiritually, I was already invested. So once I had wrote that email, and I did send it to her, but the thing is with like creating closure and doing certain things, you're not always looking for a response back. I wasn't looking for a response back. For me, I know I give things more power when I say it with my mouth, or if I write it down and put it into words, it tends to happen a whole lot faster. And when I had wrote that email, didn't matter what was said in it. It was just the long let go of like our whole shit that we had going on. Because in my world, whoever I had my children with, that's who I was going to thug it through and ride it out with. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if it's like the baddest or like I didn't deal with the lowest of the low, but like if it wasn't like really up to my par standards, like if I locked in with you, I locked in with you. Just so happened my BM was okay in that department. She was just really witchy. Anyways, after I had wrote that email and I sent it, my spirit was like, it dropped a ton of weight, bricks, boulders, the mountain that I was climbing. I finally had made it to the top and was about to make my way over. It was such a huge release because these demons and these witches, they're never going to give you any closure. You're going to have to create closure for yourself, or you'll keep ruminating and going back to that space of good memories, good times. And then if you aren't going back to that space right here, then you're still keeping the door open for them to come in. And usually when they reach out, it's usually an immediate response because you had already been processing them in the inside for such a long time. When you make it your business to make your word your bond, you're going to stand on it whether you're writing it or saying it. It gives you more power to do the things that you have to do, whether it's something that you really want to do or something that you really don't want to do. That was something that I didn't want to do, just keeping it a band, but we had already had so much weird, witchy shit in the process. I was already at my wits with putting any more energy into trying to pull this being into a better space. Like, you're around me. It doesn't get any more easier than this. You could be doing this, being a witch by yourself, or you could be trying to figure out how to not be a witch, you know, while you're with somebody who is a light being, who can help you and work with you in the process, so you ain't doing it by yourself. A lot of these beings don't care about any of that. That's why we have to learn how to create that closure for ourselves. It's no different than when you're dealing with jobs, you know, that you've been working for a really long time, and all of a sudden that's been your establishment of stability. You've been consistent there, but you done tolerated so much weird witchy stuff from bosses, supervisors, other different employees, to the point to where it got you in a whole array, and now your energy is constantly scrambled, you know, before you even get your day going, just knowing that you have to go in there and operate and deal and engage with these beings. That stability is not always worth putting yourself in such a weird spiritual space. That stability isn't always worth it, because it's giving you stability in the matrix society. It's giving you stability to the point to where, you know, however you're taking care of yourself and your family and whatever that you have that's around you. We should already know, if we follow in source, you know, our love, our life coming in abundance. So whether you had all the food, you know, and you feel like you ain't gonna get no more food because you ain't in the kitchen no more, it's gonna be another place that lines up for you that's gonna probably have free food for you, you know, or more benefits for you with food. You can put that example in place with a lot of different things that we have to figure out how to let go. I had to learn. That was just speaking of like letting go people, you know. Even when I deal with people on like short-term relationships, because any kind of ship you in is going to be, it's supposed to relate you, and it's supposed to be taking you somewhere, a destination. That's why it's a ship. You're supposed to be relating on this ship. But a lot of us are getting our ships where we aren't relating. We're relating as far as we're spiritual beings having a human experience, but as far as like really relating, oh, okay, they like this, I like this, you know. I heard this saying most recently, and it was like, opposites don't attract, right? And when I was processing it, we have our longest relationships with people who are similar to us. So when I start thinking about the opposites attract like magnets, even like the Jay-Z song, it's like they do to a certain degree, but because we're spiritual beings, our intelligence is on a whole nother level. So that process works a little bit differently than us. You don't hang around, you don't see like basketball players and like, I don't know, let's just far out example, fishermen. You don't see them spending all their time together. Not saying that basketball players cannot fish, not saying that fishermen cannot play basketball. It's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is they're doing two different things. You're not going to see plumbers and electricians spending most of their time together. Plumbers is usually going to be with other plumbers, and then electricians is going to be usually with other electricians, you know. And that statement just had kind of made me realize like how demonic even all the basic statements that we have out here are, that we have to learn to let go and create closure on these word spells. Like once you stop using these word spells, you have to close the book on them. Okay, this is the state's witchy playbook. You know what I mean? And just, it could be like a regular sized book. You close it, you wrap it up, you do what you do, and you tuck it away, or you could throw it out, or you could burn it. You know, put it back into the universe. When you burning it, you putting it back into the universe, opposed from burying it, putting it in the ground, and keeping that energy and vibration here. If we buried all the bodies. Think about it. As we talk about closing chapters and letting go. In today's society, we don't even close chapters on the people who move on to the next journey. We put them right into the ground. Before there was more cremation, you put the body back out into the universe. The spirit is already gonna do what it does. But for some reason, a lot of people are so afraid of closing the chapter on this realm. A lot of people are afraid of letting go. So a lot of people will be like, oh yeah, well, yeah, just bury me. Do you even process why they have to put you 6 feet? Do you even process why they use the numerologies that they use? Like, there's a reasoning for all of this. Most tombstones always still get decayed and everything else. So basically you're overly expending on somebody else's, exit. We gotta learn to let go. I told everybody that's close to me, like, if anything ever happens to me, cremate me, just burn me up, burn my body. Y'all do what y'all do with the ashes, because I'm not gonna hold myself here to this physical realm, and I don't need my body still being physically connected here. I don't know how much that alters me when I'm in the spiritual realm doing what I do, because I still would have some kind of connection to this vessel that's not active right now. So it makes sense when you actually learn to close chapters even on life. We went from talking about people to just transitioning to how we have a hard time even closing chapters on life. We all got to move on to our next journey. But a lot of people still want to hold on to this realm of reality. So when you still holding on to this realm of reality, you are not fully elevating to your highs. And then you have to understand that it's putting a cap on you from the information and like the information you're allowed to access. It's putting a cap on it. That's the whole purpose of putting faith into the Creator. You know what I mean? It's different ways we have to go about letting go and closing chapters. I was making a statement earlier and got sidetracked. But even when we engage with people, like you just meet them on social media, you meet them on an app, you meet them in real life, and they start doing these weird things, a lot of people be like, just ghost them. Just don't respond, just don't do that. That's cool to do that, but even me, that's me treating somebody how I don't want to be treated. So even if it's giving the demons or the witches what they want to say, hey, yo, I'm about to block you, or hey, I'm about to stop communicating with you, I don't really care about if they take that little dosage of energy or power, because I already gave them way more previously, but now this is the last little bit that you will receive. So I don't feel guilty or bad when I double down and send somebody a message, or I double down with in-person communication, letting them know what the vibes is. Everybody isn't always going to be around for the long haul, You got the in for a season, and you better find out the reason. I don't like when people say they're in for your life for a reason or a season. That is the same thing. If you in my life for a season, you in my life for a reason. If you in my life for a reason, the way my life is set up, nobody's lasted longer than a few seasons, or maybe, a few seasons. I'm just saying, like, a couple years could be a few seasons. Like, I'm not about to give a whole extravagant breakdown of that part as well too, but creating closure on the foods and things that you eat, that you used to love and indulge in, creating closure on the places that you used to go to, creating closure on the certain verbiage and words that you used to use. A lot of these things is going to require a lot of power and a lot of awareness from within, and it's going to take a lot of practicing these steps daily in order to actually be able to master it the way you want to, because as long as you're here, you should be growing. If you're on this team, I know that we're constantly growing. So you're going to run into more oppositions that's going to be in your way. You're going to run into a lot more little weird people who are like, I just say weird because they be in the middle. The sheep are the people that's in the middle that don't really hurt or harm anybody, but they follow the demonic playbook still. So their intentions aren't ill, but their actions are ill. Their intentions are not ill, but their actions are ill. So you could have had no bad intentions on like just getting up and moving past me, right? You didn't have no bad intentions, but then when you got up and moved past me, you did a 360 and elbowed me in the face or something like that. You know what I mean? So it's like, and that's because everybody that was walking through was doing 360s as soon as they got to my spot. So you didn't do it with bad intentions, like, oh yeah, I'm about to spin and elbow him. Nah, it's just that you have to understand that some of these beings out here are just sheep and they just following along. That's why you don't get a lot of the weird hard spells. You can see that some of them are still kind of empathetic. Some of them are still kind of caring to a degree. It's just that everybody on this planet is not here to lead. A lot of these beings are followers, meaning they need to have a great leader to follow, and most of them are just following the system because most haven't learned how to think for themselves anymore. They kind of been programmed to, hey, I think these thoughts for you. You see this M? That's McDonald's. You see this BK? That's Burger King. You know, you see this Chick-fil-A? It's so much sponsorship and advertisement everywhere. It's hard when you get out the house. So letting go and creating closure is going to be something that's going to be huge. You know what I mean? It's going to be huge. I don't care if you creating closure with your parents. Like, I was in a space to where I had to do that as well too. You know, I went up to New York with meet my big brother. Me and him always vibe. He's 2 years older than me. But we linked with my younger brother, which we didn't know was our younger brother. I didn't meet my younger brother till he was 10. My dad was out here running these streets, denying and lying. So, but he looked just like us. When me and my bro, we all went and met him, he looked just like us. So I was like, damn, I don't know how you could deny him. Anyways, long story short, we went to New York, went up to the Bronx to meet Lil Bro. Lil Bro was closer to sperm donor. Me and my other brother wasn't. We decided we wasn't gonna fuck with him like that. But my youngest brother had tricked us. We met him out in the Bronx. We shot a music video with him, which we didn't even know we was going shooting. And at the end of the music video, my sperm donor pulled up. So then I haven't seen him in like 10, 15, almost 20 years. And it was awkward as hell. You know, if it wasn't for my brother there, I probably would have just spun. But my big bro was there, and it was like, all right, let's go inside, chop it up for a minute. We went inside, talked. And the first thing he was just kind of asking was like, he wanted to see me with my shirt off first, see how big I was, see the tattoos. And then he started going into all these things that he went through since we haven't talked, in his motorcycle accident and all this other weird shit. And I'm just like, that's cool and all, but you still went around. And I brought up some things that he did when we was little. My dad, when we used to be out there, or when I used to spend summers, he'll whoop our ass. He'll whoop our ass. If you eating with your elbows on the table, ass whooping. If you don't finish your food, ass whooping. You watching too much cartoons, ass whooping. And when I say ass whooping, they don't be like regular ass. Occasionally you get a regular ass whooping, but he is very like Kuta Kinte slave type shit. I remember one time he had me standing in front of the mirror, ass naked, and I couldn't cry while he grabbed one of his biggest belts he could possibly find. I did good for about 2-3 hits, but that nigga strong. He a Golden Glove boxer, so by the time he got to that 4th, 5th one, you get the sniffles coming out of me now. And now I'm like trying to take my arms to kind of block a little bit. But he did all kind of weird shit. That's why me and my bro said we weren't going to spend no more summers up there and shit. But when we sat down and talked to him, I was trying to hold him accountable. He was avoiding it, and my brother wasn't addressing anything because he was too fucking scared. He's 2 years older than me. And I stood solid for the both of us. And it was so much back and forth with me and my sperm donor that I was like, yo, I'm about to just leave. So when I stood up, he must have thought, my sperm donor must have thought that like I was going to put my hands on him or something, because I ain't no little kid no more. Like, each of his sons was getting taller and bigger than him. So my sperm donor is probably like 5'8", I'm 5'10", 5'11" range, you know what I mean? And so I got a little bit of height on him. So when I stood up, he stood up, and I guess he thought I was about to like see what's up with him, because my big bro got in the middle of us. I'm just telling bro, like, chill. I ain't about to put my hands on him. When I sat down with him and I was able to address him after all these years, 10, 15 years, it probably was a little bit more than that, to be honest. I saw how weak of a man he was, or a male he was. I seen how little his spirit was. I just seen how he had such great potential, and the opposition took over, and it was no more of that strength within there. I felt bad for him. I used to be angry with him when I was younger, and I felt bad for him after that conversation. I didn't keep talking to him after that. I'm just saying I felt bad, guilty. Like, you such a weak-ass man that you couldn't even fight this fight. You know what I mean? Your son's still over here fighting, and you over here looking all weak, sitting like this. Like, my dad is a solid dude, but just the vibration. Like, you could be a giant, but if you are spiritually weak, it's gonna show. Long story short, I ended up leaving out for a split second. It came down, we talked and shit. We ended up going to meet my little sister, who I didn't know we had because sperm donor was out here in these streets. Anyways, that day allowed me to create closure on my sperm donor, which I held over him, not knowingly, from the time I was little to the time I was, 27, 28, 29, somewhere like that. But I definitely addressed it for the closure. I had to create closure for myself. That was one of them things. I don't like sitting and living in that what if, maybe, what if. If I'm trying to elevate, that means I need to get rid of all the things that's stopping and hindering my elevation or slowing it down. He in New York, I'm in Virginia, but that's my sperm donor, so he was still embedded in here. So I still had to get that little piece closed out, so that way I can move on without having to worry about this weird little thing that's going on in here, because we know the impact that your mom and dad have on you. You know, it doesn't matter if it was the healthiest or the most toxic, it's gonna be a huge impact from within. You know what I mean? That's why I feel as though closure is extremely important with a lot of things that we doing in life. You're not gonna leave out your house without closing your door and locking it. But we deal with people every day on a regular basis, and we just leave our house door open, screen door open, windows wide open. You know what I mean? So when you having all this weird stuff happening, you have to look at how much access are you allowing the world to you. Then how much access are you allowing the closer beings to you? I allow access to the world to me. The universe has access to this vessel. I've fought really fucking hard. The Creator can use this vessel at any time it pleases. You know what I mean? But I had to get to a space to where I knew, and I'm still working on closing more doors, because what's happening now is I have real life happening, and there's people coming in and out. You know, we got inflation, so the money shit is all over the place with everybody. We got rent prices going up. We got the food prices going up. We got gas bouncing all over the place. You know what I mean? So when we got all this real life stuff happening, and then you still got people that's around that's trying to play games with your life, especially if they try and play games with my life, I just create the closure and I get out the way. I create the closure and I get out the way. One of my bros that I was talking to, that me and him known each other for a while, we was locked up together and shit. We had been cool since 2007. It's 2024 now. That's how long we've been at it. But I got to a space to where he wouldn't stop disrespecting my energy when we're on the phone engaging. So it's like he'll just randomly just start carrying on conversations with other people, or he'll just not respond to what the fuck I'm saying and then just make his own point out there as if what I'm saying is not valid. And I had told him one day, I was like, damn bro, you just ain't got no respect for my energy. And he like kept doing something, so I hung up the phone. And when I hung up the phone, he already knew what time it was. He didn't call back. He didn't reach back out. We didn't have any of these other things happening. But what happened was I had a certain place for him, because that was my bro for such a long time, that I gave him certain passes and allowed him to skate by with certain actions. And then when it got to a certain point, it's like, nah, bro. I don't disrespect you in that manner, so you're not going to keep disrespecting me in that manner. You already know what my vibes is, and I know what your vibes is, but it don't, like, we're men, so I don't have a problem doing this right here. But letting go becomes extremely difficult when you have high attachments, you have a lot of investment, time, energy into certain places or people, you know? So I just keep these things in mind. You gotta learn to create closure for yourself. One thing that helped me with creating closure is not giving a fuck about what the next person was saying or thinking. For me, it was like, I didn't care that my BM was being weird, fucking with all the niggas that I did music with, some of the dudes I went to school with. I knew when I created the closure, I didn't care if she didn't respond, because at that time, we was like going back and forth where it was like, sometimes she would respond, sometimes she wouldn't. Sometimes I would respond, sometimes I wouldn't. That's why I sent the email, so that way I could stop sending text messages. But for me sending that gave me something solid to stand on. I had people recently in my life that I had to address, and I had to create that closure again as well myself. Now, just because I'm creating closure doesn't mean that you cannot pull up to my house. That just means that my doors is locked and my windows is locked. You're not just able to just bounce in and out whenever you want to, like you got a key to the house. That's not how this is gonna work anymore. So just become mindful of these things, you know? Create that closure, whether you have to address them physically in real life, whether you have to send a message or an email, create the closure for yourself. They want us to not be caring. They want us to, like, remove our emotions. No, we're going to keep all this shit intact with us, but we're going to remove it from you. We're going to keep all this intact, but we're going to remove it from you. So that way, we don't stop being ourselves. We don't lose our connection with Source. Once you involve yourself with too many of them and you start becoming like them, if they aren't becoming you into your light, you start picking up their attributes and becoming them. We don't want to be them. They don't want to be us. This is where we get caught in the middle, busting heads. This is where most of the friction starts to happen at. We're trying to have our vibration outpower their vibration, but they've worked really hard at this weak-ass vibration over here. So they're having to spend extra time. We can sleep at nighttime. They don't sleep. They have to put in overtime in order to try to outpower ours. You know what I mean? But I ain't want to run it up too long. We have to keep these things in mind. You have to learn to let go. You have to learn to create the closure. Create closure. You know what I mean? Don't treat people how you don't. If you don't like people ghosting you, don't ghost them. All you have to do is send a message and then delete and block from there. Simple process. You don't even have to delete and block. If it was an email, when I sent my email, I didn't delete and block. I just sent the email and then I removed the thread so that way I didn't have to see it, but I didn't delete it, so it's still in my archives if I needed to go use it later. But you gotta start implementing new tactics, you know what I mean? Don't start just treating people how you don't want to be treated just because they're doing weird stuff to you. You know what I mean? Just be mindful of these things. Tapping everything down below. Peace and love to the kings and queens.